The Pope and Young Club wants to welcome you as we rally together to ensure our bow hunting opportunities for today and tomorrow. You've come to the podcast that believes in preserving, protecting, and promoting the passion for bow hunting. Join us as we strive to be the voice of today's bow hunter. This is the Pope and Young Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pope and Young Podcast. This is episode number 52, our 1-year anniversary, Dylan.
I can't believe we've made it this far.
I can't believe it's already been a year. I mean, so, hey, for those of you who haven't listened before, thanks for being here. I'm Jason Rounsaville. I've got with me, as always, Dylan Ray, and we are here to highlight a fantastic year. And I mean, we had some amazing guests, and we had some fantastic episodes this year. And so we just wanted to take an opportunity to go through some of them.
I can't believe we had some of the guests we had. Like, looking at the list, I'm like, how did we ever get them to talk to us? Like,
I know.
Why would they want to spend an hour with us?
I know. Well, I'd want to spend an hour with us. We're a lot of fun, man.
Well, you said we made it a year, and I'm like, man, I don't know how we put up with each other for a year, much less these guests and the listeners put up with us for a year.
Well, you know, they are, and that's all that matters. And it keeps growing. And so once again, thanks everybody for tuning in, checking us out. We're having fun doing it. I hope you appreciate it and enjoy it along the way. And Dylan, what do you think, man? What if you had to pick one thing of the past year? What's your top thing? What highlight?
My highlight had to have been when, and this wasn't from the podcast, but it came because of the podcast, is when Brian Butcher and his buddies found you at convention and said, "Do we listen to your podcast?" And I mean, that's just, I mean, anytime you hear that, you're like, really? You spend your time listening to me talk? That's awesome.
That was cool. That was, and those guys totally set me up on that. And if you've heard this story, I'm sorry, but this one is too good to leave alone. These guys, Brian Butcher, who just killed this mammoth, odd-looking 300-inch whitetail, non-typical whitetail. And I mean, it's odd. It is not. When you think of a trophy monster buck, this ain't it. Sorry, Brian. But anyway, I'm at a convention, and I'm just visiting with somebody. And these three guys, and they were having fun, man. It's the kind of people you want to talk to. They come up, they say, "Hey, are you Jason?" I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "We listen to the podcast." And, once again, that's fantastic. And I said, "Great." I said, the other guy that's listening, he's right over there. Like I said, we got all four of you here,
You came to me right after that, and you're like, "Dude, I found somebody who listens to the podcast."
I know. It was awesome. And so I didn't know who I was talking to. I didn't realize it was, Brian Butcher from the Butcher Buck at the time. And I just knew it was Brian and his buddies. And so anyway, we're talking, and I don't know if they set me up or if I just inserted my foot right into my own mouth. But we're standing at what are the chances that I visit with these guys? What are the chances we just happen to be standing literally 3 feet from his buck? I mean, there were 500 lineal feet of trophies around that room. We just happened to be standing by the whitetails. I said, "Hey guys," I said, "if you had to pick any one of these, which one would you pick?" Oh, that Brewster buck, which is, phenomenal.
New world record.
And Luke's just a great guy. I mean, he's just a great guy. Super nice, very humble. Exactly who you root for to get a world record.
Yeah.
Or one of these big typicals, like, that Jim Willems buck. I mean, there's some trophies, and they point down, and because his buck was down a little bit lower, and he says, "I'd pick that one." And I look at him, I'm like, "Really?" I said, "You know how much grief that gave my measures at Pan?" And then they all started busting up. I'm like, "Okay, what did I miss?" And they're like, "This is Brian Butcher. That's his buck." I'm like, literally open mouth, insert foot. But I'll tell you what, I had a great time visiting with those guys at convention, and then they came on the podcast, and they were as much fun recording as they were in person. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
They absolutely were, man. Episode 38. Go back and listen to it.
Yeah,
they were fun. They were a good time. And turns out he actually only lives. All of them only live like an hour and a half from me. And
really?
so since then, maybe even an hour. And so since then, we've texted back and forth, and I've got a little 3D range in my backyard, and I'm like, you guys need to come over and just hang out. Like, you're the kind of dudes I want to shoot bows with.
Cool. Oh yeah, those are the kind of guys you want to grab a beer or whatever. They're just fun. Yeah, it was just awesome.
Yeah, no, they're fun guys. Episode 38. One of my favorite guests. There's Jason. What's hard for me is when you look at the list of guests we've had. And I think me and you, I think we made a mistake because we come out of the gate with some of the biggest names you could ever think of in bow hunting.
Bam, yeah, with world record. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, maybe I told you this. I'm like, maybe we should have saved those for when we built a little more of a following. So I think it's time we loop back and start having those guys on again because, people like Tom Miranda, I mean, guys that I looked up to my entire life.
He's been there, done that.
Yeah. Tom Nelson.
Tom Nelson. There's not a nicer guy. And Tom Miranda, who does, I mean, both of those guys not only are huge bow hunters, but very big club supporters. Tom Nelson, started our hunt program at Pope and Young, for our auctions and raffles. Tom Miranda did, that awards dinner Saturday night this year. I've been to awards dinners for 30 years. That was as professional of a presentation that he did for us that I've seen. Oh, and he did it all. I mean, just huge club supporters, and not to mention just world-class bow hunters. So,
yeah. I look back at this list and I'm like, dude, there's people that I grew up reading and idolizing, and your Chuck Adams and your Jack Frost and I was a little boy reading stories and my dad talking about these guys, and now here I am on a podcast with them, and then. Then of course you got guys that I look up to now and like that I like now. I mean, we'll get into our Remy Warrens and John Dudleys and Jay Scotts and guys that I currently like, I enjoy watching and learning from. But I mean, just a crazy guest list, man, for 1 year in.
I know. And it's like, you look at it and it's like, okay, how do you pick a highlight? And it's impossible. And you look at, you talk about coming full circle with some of this. First episode was Alan Bolin and his son. What were we talking about? World record Sitka blacktail. You know what episode 51 was?
Well, what's crazy, before we get into that's what's crazy is we launched this podcast, and it wasn't like, let's talk to Alan Bolin, who broke the world record a year and a half ago. It was like 2 weeks ago he broke this world record. Let's have him on to talk about it. Like, how do you? And we didn't even plan the launch around that. It was like, let's launch a podcast. Oh, Alan Bolin just broke a world record. Let's have him on. And then episode 51, it's about that 1 year later.
Chuck Adams breaks the record.
Chuck Adams.
Yeah, and then we had them both on, which was just, that was. And you know what? You talk about just stellar guys. Chuck Adams is just one of those guys who he's been there, done it. I mean, he's done more stuff bow hunting. It's just incredible. 6 world records now to his name. And he is so humble. I mean, I sent him a text after that just saying, hey, thanks for coming on the podcast. And for those of you who don't know, he actually postponed announcing his new world record just to coincide with our podcast. And so he pushed that back several. Man, if I ever shot a world record, I'd be like, no, I want people to know today, right now. And he pushed it back just for us.
You're calling people before you're off the mountain.
Yeah. And so, and so I sent him a text. I said, hey, thanks for doing that, and really appreciate you letting us, push it back a few days to coordinate with the podcast. And you know what? He sends me a text. He says, hey, thanks for making me look good. I'm like, The guy's got 6 world records. There's nothing I can do to make it.
Anything for you.
Oh, it's just such a professional, man.
You know, I have a lot of people ask me, like, who's the best people you ever talked to? Like, who's the nicest? And I'm like, you know, I've not, inside the Pope and Young organization, I've not met anybody who let me down. But Chuck Adams has to be up there at the top. You know, I told him one time, the first time I ever talked to him, I just told him how big of a fan my dad was. I'm like, Chuck, listen, I've never gotten starstruck. Like, this don't happen to me. I said, but you're the guy that I grew up, I mean, my dad raving about. Like, you were the man in my house. And so we talked and we got off the phone, and later that day I got an email saying, what's your dad's mailing address? And I'm like, why? What's up? And he signed one of his books and sent it to my dad. And I was like, cool. Dude, you can't beat that. Like, that's the kind of guy that, I mean, he's great, man.
Yeah, no, he was, and it's, and he's fantastic. But then you look at a list of all the other guys, you know, like Jack Frost. You know, Jack was one of the pioneers. You know, he's out there doing it. He made it happen when other people hadn't done it. And so, you know, I look at it now and imagine being in his shoes, because I look at it and I'm like, can you imagine getting all 29 species with a bow? I mean, how do you fathom that? And I say that knowing full well that people have done it. I mean, not very many people, but people have done it. Imagine being Jack when nobody done it. And how I mean, what kind of guy has the fortitude to say, you know what, I can do that, and I can do it with a bow? That's just pioneer, man.
You want to talk about getting foot? You want to talk about getting foot in mouth? I had read about Jack my entire life. You know, articles on first to do it and first to, and I mean, magazine articles and write-ups and all of these things. And I don't even remember who it was with me at convention, but I walk up to Jack. I'm like, I don't think I've met you yet. My name's Dylan Ray. What's your name? And whoever it was just leaned up next to me and said, Jack Frost, bro. And I'm like, oh crap. You know, it's one of those things, like, I've read about you my entire life, but I've never just put a name to that face.
Right.
And in that moment, I'm just like, I'm so sorry. my name is Jason Roundsville. Nice to meet you.
And it's like, it's one of those things where you just, you know, you're at convention and you're walking up and talking to a guy. You don't expect him to be a legend, but he is.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Convention was insane because we're walking around and I'm like, and we had the pleasure of having these people on the podcast. So I had a somewhat of a relationship. I'm like, oh my gosh, Chrissy, there's Tom Miranda, there's Tom Nelson, there's Harv Ebers, there's, I mean, Jack Frost, there's Michael Waddell, there's Remy Warren, and I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah.
How do you have all your bow hunting heroes right here in one place?
Yeah. Yeah. It was kind of neat because I was actually at my folks' place at the coast, and it was raining like crazy. So we're just inside watching TV, and happened to be the Outdoor Channel on. And for like 45 minutes of this kind of, I don't know what you call it, where there's like a bunch of different people on an episode. For 45 minutes, literally everybody on this bow hunting TV was somebody who was either coming to convention or we just had on the podcast. It was like Michael Waddell. It was Nick Munt. It was like Tom Nelson was on. It was like all these guys just popped up. And I'm sitting there with my dad like, oh yeah, we just had him on the podcast. Oh yeah, he's going to be a speaker at convention. It was so cool, you know? So yeah, a small town guy just loves to hunt. All of a sudden he's seeing talking all these people on TV. It's pretty neat.
The story that I have from convention that and tells a lot of these guys. So it was real smoky. There was wildfires going all around, and it messed me up bad. Like, I got like 4 nosebleeds at convention, and we were at a dinner, and I got a nosebleed. And so I go to the bathroom. My nose is pouring blood into the sink. Well, in walks Brandon Waddell, great partner of ours from Mountain Archery Fest.
Oh yeah.
So he's talking to me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. It's just dried out allergies, whatever. And he says, all right, yeah, man, no problem. Well, then walks Remy Warren, and I'm like, well, crap. And he's like, you all right, man? And I'm like, yeah, just a nosebleed. And he's trying to tell me all this, try this, try that. And I'm like, yeah, thanks, man. Whatever. He walks off, and then I'm like, well, this can't get any worse. I swear, Michael Waddell walks in the door. I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me. And Michael, he's got all them booger bottom boys back home stories. Like, hey, flick your nose this way and turn your eyes that way, and it'll stop bleeding. And I'm like, all right, I'll try it, whatever. And so he walks out, and I'm like, this cannot, I don't think there's anybody else here that can top this. And before my nose quit bleeding, Alan Bolin walks in, and I'm like, great. Andrew McKean walks in, editor for Outdoor Life. I'm like, great. And literally in that 10-minute time frame, apparently all the big names at convention had to go pee.
Yeah.
And so they're all walking in looking at me like, one guy, I don't remember who it was. I think it was either Michael or Remy. One guy, because it was our ball, our big dinner. So I had a tie on. They literally didn't say a word. They just walked up behind me and flipped my tie over my shoulder so I didn't bleed on it. I'm like, you got it. You couldn't make this up.
No. That's, what? Here's from convention. You bring up Michael Waddell, who, man, he was our keynote speaker. He did a great job for us. But I swear, man, I think my highlight, I have a lot of highlights at convention. It was a great time, and it's going to be even better in 23 when we're back in Reno. But one of the things is was it after Friday night? It was after Friday night.
Yeah.
And so everybody's cleaning up. They're taking plates off and they're breaking down the tables, and we're just standing around. I mean, there's just beautiful animal displays everywhere to look at, and everybody's just standing around talking. And we find a cell phone on this table. So, I mean, I jump up on stage because I'm like, well, I've been up there all night. I'd jump up and make sure I make an announcement so people know. And they'd already taken the microphone, so I couldn't really announce it. I didn't want to yell across the room. So anyway, you do the next most responsible thing with the cell phone you just found on the table. You check and see if it's unlocked. You start taking selfies. And so we go up there and they were all very tasteful, but we took a couple of cool shots, and then we got a group of us with Michael Waddell in it. And I'm like, man, how cool is this going to be? Somebody's going to get their cell phone back tomorrow, and they're going to have a selfie with Michael Waddell on their phone. And so anyway, we're joking around about it. We're kind of having fun. I'm like, man, who leaves their phone unlocked anyway? And Michael's like, hey, let me see that. It was his phone. And he just took him a minute to catch up. He's like, I was wondering who had a beat up old phone like that. And so it was kind of funny because we thought we were going to make somebody's day having a selfie of Michael Waddell on there, and it was his phone. So he did actually text me that picture.
Did he?
He did. Yeah, I have it. That was too cool. I may have had to ask for it, but yeah, he sent it over to me.
Before we move on, and I have not talked to you about this yet, so I'm sorry. What do you want to? Let's do a 1-year podcast giveaway. I'm putting you on the spot here. I'm putting you on the spot.
Okay.
100% on the spot, ladies and gentlemen. What do you want to give away, Jason?
What are you thinking?
Oh, I don't know, man. We got a lot of cool stuff. Stuff.
What about I don't know. Let's come back to that. How about that? We got a Cryptek bow case.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? How about, you know what? How about a Garmin watch?
Bow case. I'm thinking a Cryptek bow case with a Garmin watch shoved inside of it, along with some of our Pope and Young swag. Let's deck them out.
Let's do it. That'd do it.
All right.
You want to do that? What do you have to do for it?
Head over to our social media, and we will. That's where you'll see the giveaway posted on how to enter to win that giveaway. But heck, why not, man? We've made it 1 year, and Jason, our last episode, with Alan Bolin and Chuck Adams broke 2,000 downloads in the first week, which for a new podcast, hey, we're happy with that. So let's celebrate it, man. Let's give back to them and let's hook them up big.
All right. I mean, that's a pretty good hookup. Let's do it. All right.
I'm thinking we do a podcast giveaway every year. And yeah, we'll just start it off. I put you completely on the spot. I'm sorry for that. I did it.
Hey, you know what? Thanks to all of our corporate partners for having some gear in our coffers that we can do that with. And those Garmin watches are nice.
Yes, they are. Speaking of corporate partners, we've had some corporate partners on along the way, and they make some of the best guests. We've had Chris Parrish and Ryan Schutz from Bear Archery. That was a fun episode. We did one with Chris at convention. That was fun. We did one with Michael Waddell from Mountain Archery Fest. Speaking of realist guys, I mean, you can't get more genuine than Brandon Waddell.
Yeah. Brandon is just one of those guys, you know, a lot of people talk about it, and Brandon, man, you see him call and you're like, okay, let's see, do I have 45 minutes for a phone call? Yeah, an hour. And you know, that's not a dig, but this guy is so infectious, man. He's got that energy that's contagious, and you want to talk to him. He's always got ideas, and so a lot of people talk about it while they're talking, man. Brandon just does it. He's like, okay, here's what we're doing, you know, and if you want a great time, go shoot the Mountain Archery Festival and shoot the Pope and Young course. You can go shoot 29 world record targets, and not just close. These are like world record quality animals, and it is so amazing to see. I've got to see him in person, and it is legitimate. So
you shot the course yet?
I shot part of it. I shot part of it. Yeah, I actually shot it with
a bow this year.
Yeah, I shot it actually with some of the Baku guys. We had a great time.
I did know that. So, which I'm most excited, man. I don't know if we're allowed to drop this knowledge yet. If not, sorry, Brandon. But there's one in Branson, Missouri this year. That's just a hop, skip, and a jump away from me. So I'm gonna pack my bow over there and I'm gonna shoot that course.
Very cool.
But I remember first time I ever met Brandon, we roll up to Mountain Archery Fest, and it was like 9 p.m. probably, close to it. And you get out of the car and you give Brandon a hug, and he gives Heather a hug, and of course you guys had this relationship with him. You knew him well. And he comes around to my side of the car, and buddy, he grabs me and he hugs me so stinking hard. And he says, "Nice to meet you, man. Welcome to Pope and Young, dude. Welcome to Mountain Archery Fest." You know, he's all fired up. And I'm just like, he's the real deal. And he says, "Man, you guys got here late. You guys ain't even had dinner yet, have you, man?" He said, "Well, head down to my cabin." Told us where it was. Head down to my cabin, and you guys just go on in. Mama's got spaghetti made and salads and bread. And at 9 o'clock at night, he opened up his house. He opened up his house for us. And
because there wasn't any other food on the mountain at 9 o'clock.
Yeah. And then you hear him at the Pope and Young Pint Night talking about Pope and Young and how bow hunting saved his life. And dude was literally crying. And again, that's not a dig on him at all, but I was like, this guy's passionate and this guy's serious about what he does. And I just knew right then and there, there's not any more real guys than this guy here.
Yeah. Well, and you never know who you're going to bump into, because that's, the last 2 years, we've bumped into Steve Felix, you know, world record elk holder up on the mountain at the Mountain Archery Fest. I mean, you just never know who you're going to run into there. So, I asked him, I said, "Hey, how was it shooting your elk again?" He said it was better the first time.
I bet it was.
He said it was awesome, but it was better the first time. So that was fun.
Yeah, we've also had Chris Hamm from HHA. They've been a corporate partner for a long time. Let's see, who else have we had? We've had John and Terry from Fairdyne. We've had Brian Martin from Baku. Talk about our Baku event.
We kind of had Terry from Fairdyne. She wouldn't get on camera. She was hiding behind the camera.
Yeah, on with her voice, but off with her face.
We're going to make a point of getting her on camera to this podcast one of these days, I think.
Let's do it.
So yeah, Baku, they came on as a corporate partner this summer, and man, you talk about cannonball into the deep end. These guys came in, hooked us up with some bikes, um, and now all of a sudden we're looking at doing a regional Pope and Young event in Utah at the Baku Center. Looks like we're shooting for May 14th. So we're going to have some of our corporate partners and some local vendors there to do some, try before you buy stuff, shooting lanes. And then we're going to have a full on, barbecue dinner. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. A lot of fun. Talk bow hunting.
I got a video today, and I haven't even sent it to you yet. I got a video today of Dallas Smith. They're at the Baku headquarters, and he's giving me like a tour, just a show around the place.
Yeah.
Incredible facilities. Incredible.
Oh, yeah.
You're looking
Cannot wait to see it.
They scan that back wall, and it's just giant elk across the back, and they've got a pro shop in there to get your bows tuned up and worked on, and mezzanines to sit and watch people shoot. I'm like, this is awesome, dude. It's gonna be a cool event.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about that. And once again, Baku's stepping up to help us out, and Hoyt will be there, Easton. So excited to have some of our partners at that one. And the other thing is, you talk about guys with energy. You talk about Brandon Waddell. The other another guy that's like that, he's just out making it happen, is Robbie Kroger. With Blood Origins. And here's a guy, when you meet him, South African, really well spoken, and he starts talking about these concepts that are 100% relevant and 100% exactly what needs to be talked about. But it's the big stuff that you just are almost afraid to tackle. And he goes and does it. I mean, he's talking, and his audience isn't, he's not just talking to bow hunters. He's not just talking to hunters. He's talking to everyone out there about things that affect hunting and how our perception of hunting is. And it's, it expanded. Here I am, just, Jay Redneck, and it expands the way you think about things, because these are conversations we need to have, and we need to have intelligently. And he's putting them together, and he's showing people why it's important to hunt, what hunting means to non-hunters and even to anti-hunters. So
he's the only guy I've ever heard talk about hunting that made me rethink hunting. Like, that made me stop and think about, I am a hunter. Like, we always think like, oh yeah, I'm a hunter, I'm a bow hunter, I like to kill animals and eat them, but then he talks about it, and it makes you rethink why you're a hunter, not in a bad way, but in like that, how'd you do that type of way? Like, how did you break me down as a hunter like that? Like, incredibly well spoken, incredibly.
Yeah.
And I think I've built enough of a relationship with Brandon to say this. But you said like Brandon, then you said Robbie Kroger, and I almost said, but way better spoken.
Yeah.
Because he is a lot like Brandon.
Yeah.
But just the way the guy talks and articulates hunting, you're like, wow.
Yeah. And that was a lot of fun. And, when we had Ben Solaris on from down under, from Australia, that was, here's a guy who's out there shooting world record animals, and, he's got a Pope and Young like organization that he runs in that he's part of down in Australia. And this guy, man, he's getting out there and doing it. He's going all over the world, and we need to make sure we get an invite to him for Reno, because I know this last time didn't work, but we need to make sure we reach back out to him and get him to Reno. That'd be fun.
I'll tell you, when I looked back and I thought, I'm glad I had him on. He commented on one of my posts on Facebook and said, "Good day, mate." And I'm like, oh yeah, you're coming back on. Like, that made my day right there.
That's That's no, we've had a lot of good guests, and it's I got I got one of them. I think this is before you were on. It's definitely before the podcast started. Was when we did our auction. Well, it's when Virginia got canceled, and we did our live auction. John Bear came in and did a great job for us, and Jana Waller was there, and you know, when you have somebody like Jana, you try to get her on, you know, on your side and on camera if you can. And so we're like, hey, we've got to do this drawing for this big hunt. I think it was Yukon moose hunt. I can't remember which one it was. We've done a bunch. And so a buddy of mine, so she did the drawing for us on Facebook Live. And so the next day, my buddy Rock, he's like, hey, he says, I got good news and I got bad news. I said, okay, what? I'll take the bad news. What is it? He says, you know, yesterday when you did that drawing, he said you put your cell phone number out for the entire world. And I was like, okay, that's probably not. It probably wasn't the plan. You know, we're rolling with it. We're, you know, go with it. And I said, well, what's the good news? And he says, Jana Waller gave your cell phone number out over the internet. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. It was when she was on, we talked to her about that. And I think she got a giggle out of it because I don't think I'd told her that story yet. So
now, Jason, here's the question that I'm anxious to get to. And this is what has defined our podcast, I believe, up to this point. We asked every guest, what's one thing you take on a hunt that's maybe non-traditional? So I want to start with hearing some of your favorites, but I also want to ask you, because I actually have, I want to ask you if you've implemented anything you've heard, if you've taken what our guests have said and actually used it as well. Because there's been two things where I did, and I was like, you're a genius. So what's been some of your favorite answers?
You know, I'm going back. I think it was episode number 2. Justin Gordon, who had just shot that mammoth of a mule deer. I mean, this thing is just massive. And we had him on, and he's like, on those backcountry hunts, you know what I take? He says, I take 1 package of bacon, of the dehydrated bacon. And I'm like, I don't know where that's not a good answer. So I know it was from episode number 2, but you know, Justin, if you're listening, your bacon is the standard by which I hold all other answers up to. So that I have to go with that one. We've had a bunch of good ones, but that one still stands out for me. How about you?
You know, I need to go back and like just go back and fast forward to all the answers so I can find them all.
We need to create a list.
Yeah. Well, I look back on that list and I'm like, you know, I remember what a lot of them said, but there's just a couple where I'm like, what did you say? My favorite, all-time favorite is Nick Munt and Uncrustables. Reason being is because I, too, share a love for Uncrustables. But he's opened my eyes to even bigger.
It's Dylan. I'm going to go so far as to say I don't think that was just an answer. I think that started a saga of.
It did, yeah.
Yes, that was more of a life-changing episode than just an answer. So please continue.
I really want to come up with a shirt. And I don't know if I can get you on board with Pope and Young selling it, but I wanted to just say Uncrustables, the official tree stand snack of North American bow hunting.
We need to get them on board. Let's get them on board. Yeah. We might be able to get them. I still think, man, we need Uncrustables and we need Diet Dew. There's no reason Diet. I mean, we got Black Rifle coffee. We got to get Diet Dew. So,
the two things that I've implemented. Told you I've implemented 2 things. Remy Warren said black industrial trash bags.
I have done that. Yes.
Shout out to Remy Warren. Threw one in my backpack. I'm like, if Remy Warren does it, I'm stinking doing it.
Yeah.
So I put a black industrial trash bag in my backpack, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, am I ever going to use that? Because Remy's much more backcountry and solo, than I am. So
he's like more than 100 yards from the truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I shot a doe in Arkansas, and I was in the process of breaking it down, and I'm like, wait a minute, Dad. I was with my dad. Like, we could have easily just there's a lot of things we could have done, but I was like, Dad, I've got this black trash bag in my backpack. Grab it out of there. And so he cuts it out and lays it out flat. And as I quartered that deer out, I could just lay it out on that black trash bag. And I was like, stinking Remy Warren. Like,
yeah,
you're the man. And then also, just a couple episodes ago, Tom Clum said a lighter, so he could check the wind direction as he's hunting. And so somebody called me, and they had listened to that episode, and they're like, dude, that's actually really smart. And I was like, it is. And so I've thrown a lighter in the side pocket of my binocular harness for that purpose of checking wind.
Yeah. That's good. Well, those are good ones. I actually I've taken the contractor bags for a while, but I actually used one this year. I got stuck there at a herd of elk all around a ground blind I was in, and I didn't want to bust a herd of elk out just to get back to camp. So I actually crashed the night in the ground blind so I didn't bust them out. And man, I was glad to have it. I wish I'd had 100 of them because it was chilly. But I was not quite ready for how cold it got that night, but it worked. So
I wanted to know one more guest that meant a lot to me, just because of the role that he played in my traditional journey, and that's Harv Ebers. Which again, I mean, looking back at the history of Pope and Young, just a legend for making Pope and Young, helping to make what it is.
He's not only helped to make it what it is, he helped to start it. He's one of the founding members.
Yeah. But Harv, I drove to his house and spent a whole day there, and he really was the one that taught me how to shoot a recurve. I had other guys that obviously have helped along the way, Jim Willems and Tom Clum, but Harv was that first guy that put hands-on practice on teaching me to shoot a recurve. And so having him on, that was cool to have somebody who not only played such a huge role in Pope and Young, but in my journey to shooting a recurve.
You know who's got good Harv Ebers stories is TJ Tavigi from Bear Track. We had him on, and he's like, oh man, he had all. I actually hunted with TJ for antelope this year. Had a great hunt, and it was a lot of fun. We're actually looking to put together. So here's a little news flash or an alert. Keep your eyes out. TJ is actually going to do a week for just Pope and Young folks at his camp in 23. We tried to put it together next year for 22, couldn't do it. So 23, he's saving us a week, and it's going to be either buy them or win them from Pope and Young to get invited to Pope and Young week at Bear Track. It's going to be awesome. He's over in Buffalo, Wyoming.
That'll be sweet.
A lot of antelope over there. So
that'll be sweet.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I've got to either buy. I ain't gonna win one, so I got to buy one of the spots because that's gonna be too much fun to miss.
Yeah, we don't win anything.
No,
we're not those.
Well, although I feel like we won. You know, with the Uncrustables, I don't know how you lose, and that's that was new to me. But now I feel enlightened.
I about kicked my son. I about kicked him out of the house. I show up. He's a stinking 3-year-old. What kind of 3-year-old doesn't like peanut butter and jelly? And I was hunting last week in Oklahoma, and I come home with my cooler, and I had just thrown all my leftover food back in my cooler. There was 5 or 6 leftover Uncrustables. And so I'm like, oh, son, here you go, buddy. You get one. And he took a bite of it, and he's just like, no, thanks. I'm like, what?
Now, was it an Uncrustable or was it a knockoff brand? Because there is a massive difference.
I learned my lesson there. It was uncrustable.
Okay.
I just don't think he got all the way to the peanut butter and jelly. I think he just got white bread, like the edge where it's just bread.
But there's still no crust.
Yeah. I almost kicked him in the head. I was almost like, dude, are you serious?
Yeah. I don't think you're supposed to do that. You're probably not supposed to say that on the podcast either.
Well,
but you didn't kick him in the head. You just almost kicked him in the head.
I thought about it. Yeah. People
okay.
thought about it a lot worse. So
that's a fact. So, well,
yeah, go ahead.
No, it's too many fun guests, and I look at it, and we could probably spend 3 hours just recapping some of the stories, but it's been an amazing journey. It's been an absolute, enjoyable year to be able to do this, and man, I can't wait to see what the next year brings. It's making a difference. I have some friends that I talk to. I got a good buddy of mine that I've been hunting with for years. Ducks and geese and Rocky, and so all of a sudden he started listening to this podcast, and next thing you know, his son Brock, he bought both of them bows, and now all of a sudden they're bow hunters, man. And kind of one of his first introductions to archery was this podcast. So
that's awesome.
That's kind of a neat story. So, Rocky, if you're listening, shout out. Thanks for keeping us rolling, and welcome to the bow hunting community. So,
when we were talking about this episode, you said, Dylan, we got to find a big guest. We need a big guest for 1 year. And I looked back and I'm like, Jason, I don't know if you know this, but
a bunch of big guests.
I'm like, all of our big guests have been 1 year, like cap offs. Like, yeah. I mean, you look through there, any one of these could have played a 1 year, like big name guest.
Yeah.
I mean, Alan Bolin.
Right. Luke Brewster,
Jay
biggest
Scott,
whitetail ever. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you look at this and I'm like, Jason, you can't go much bigger than this. I mean, no. Fred Barrett's dead and gone. He's about the only one that could cap these off.
Yeah.
And so we decided to do a recap episode, which I'm glad we did, because, man, in this next year, I think we have 52 more guests lined up, ready to rock and roll. But, I just don't think we could have picked one that was any more deserving than a stacked list.
I know. Yeah, you're still talking about Dr. Warren Strickland's, man cave. And
my God. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, how did we almost miss that? I almost missed it. Go back to episode 46, one of our most listened to episodes. Dr. Warren Strickland is a stud of a human being, a stud of a hunter. But he gave us this quick little rundown tour of his shop barn man cave.
Yeah.
With like 300 recurves hanging on the wall. I mean, there had to have been hundreds of animals hanging in there. It was incredible. I mean, one of the coolest man caves I've ever seen. It gave me true inspiration.
Yeah. No, that was neat to see. And it's just one of many, episodes and moments that you're just, proud to be part of it. So,
yeah. And that just goes to prove, I mean, how can you possibly almost miss talking to Warren Strickland? I mean, there's so many guests tucked in there.
Yeah.
James Jean, which if you haven't seen James Jean's trick shots, I don't know, you've been living under a rock, but I mean, just some huge guests, man.
Yeah. How about, my girl from home state of Oregon, Christy Titus, came on, and that was fun. How about the engagement couple? Yes. So, and then we had the couple on who included Pope and Young in their engagement video.
Yes.
We were
cool.
Yeah, we were so, I think enamored by that they would include Pope and Young in their engagement video, that we sent them some swag and invited them on the podcast and had a lot of fun. That was pretty great. I think we got a couple. I think she's going to be a future bow hunter.
Yeah. I saw he killed his first deer with a bow.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah.
That is cool.
I don't remember what state it was in. I know he talked about traveling. I don't remember what state it is. But yeah, I saw him post that he had shot his first deer with a bow.
That's great. I know he lives in Florida, but I know he travels. They've hunt a ranch somewhere. I can't remember what state it was in, but yeah, it's been a great year, and I'm just so excited for the next 52 episodes. And Dylan, I want to thank you for all you do to make it happen, man. You're setting these folks up, and I know it can be a scheduling nightmare between them and you and me, and then changing schedules and weather events and broken down trucks. And we had one guy do he did the podcast from his truck outside the sporting goods store.
Yeah. Yeah. Dave Thomas. He's a fun guy. He's a fun guy.
That was fun. So
yeah.
Anyway, great job, man. If you're listening, thank you very much for allowing us to do this. We have a lot of fun with it. We try to make it, informational and fun and enjoyable, and we appreciate you listening. Couldn't do it without you. And Dylan, here's to another 52, man.
Yeah, you guys better buckle up because we're just going to do it bigger and better.
Oh, yeah. It's like a roller coaster. Here we go. So anyway, everybody, this is Jason and Dylan signing off for the 1-year anniversary of the Pope and Young podcast. Appreciate you joining us for the ride. And here's looking out for year number 2.